Welcome to my tutorial for Violence Fight, and this is the arcade version. I actually just played through the Arcade Archives version on the Switch. So as I was beating it again on the Switch, I realized that I had found some pretty good stun lock and positional exploits and shit like that. So I thought it would be good to try to complete a 1cc run of the arcade version. So that's what I ended up doing. It took me around an hour and 20 minutes to complete the 1cc run, which is no continues used. I lost one round. I did beat the game on arcade back in 2020, and I think it took about 40-something minutes to beat back then. It can actually be kind of challenging. Some of the enemies can destroy you really quick, some of the later enemies especially. But you can pull a lot of bullshit. So that's what I'm going to get into here. So my main strategy was to just use one move in one character. So I use this character, and I only use the kick for the most part. So what's good about the kick is it has long range. Now I will fuck around sometimes with an uppercut on the earlier enemies, but just to fuck around. But the kick, it has really long range, so you can hit guys from far away. And, it's not that powerful, but it has the ability to stun lock opponents. You can get them in these pretty much permanent stun locks sometimes if you get your positioning perfect. So that's what I'm going to try to show. You'll see it on a few of the later enemies especially. But it's kind of like, you see how I was getting in that corner and kicking them against the wall? It's something like that. But it's just, you'll see it when it's locked in properly. You want to try to get that position, and you can tweak your position. What you do is, I use the turbo controller so that I'm constantly kicking when I hold the button down, but what I do is I'll press the D-pad, or you can use a stick or whatever, to inch my way a little farther after each kick so I can kind of tweak my position before the AI really reacts, because the AI will get kind of stuck. If you keep kicking, sometimes the AI gets a little bit stuck, and you can kind of just inch your position closer to them until you get them in range, and then you can just spam the shit out of that move. You see, you can get them in like a loop, but it's not as evident here because this is a single plane fight, but very easy. But most of the fights you can move up and down. So the strategy for most of the fighters, it doesn't get hard until a few fights in with this strat. It's very easy initially if you do this, but the main thing that I'm going to be showing, and you're going to see me do, is that I'm always trying to be slightly above or slightly below the opponent and kicking. And I'm going to inch closer and closer. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to push their back against the wall so I can get them in that perfect corners position, which is a stun lock position where I can keep stun locking the enemy. And they basically, 90% of the time can't recover from it. I think if you get it perfect, I think it might be impossible for them to recover if your positioning is flawless, which I think I did a few times. But now sometimes if it was just a little bit off, it seemed like some enemies would break through it and they can, demolish you until you get them back in that position again. So the key is to try to, immediately try to get them into the proper position. For these bonus stages, I didn't even know how to hit the fucking tiger unless it's jumping. So I didn't bother trying to complete these. They're optional. It doesn't count towards your failure of the run or anything, so you can fuck it up if you want. To be honest, I didn't look up any of the fucking moves. I know there's a straight punch, there's a knee. You see, I did the knee. I don't even know how to do those moves. It seems like there's only 2 attack buttons, and somehow you can get different moves to come out, but I don't know. I have no fucking clue how that's done. I tried all kinds of variations. When I beat this game on arcade, I used the straight punch technique with this character, I believe. But I can't even do the straight punches anymore. I can't figure it out, so... you may want to look that up, but I don't think, if you're going to do a 1cc run, I don't really think you need to bother. If that's all you're going for, you can just use this strat and it will work. It did take me a little while to pull it off. That included some practice of practicing some of the characters with save states, which you always want to do for this kind of thing. Practice the fighters, practice the harder fighters with save states so you don't fuck it up, in the middle of your run. It does help. But so for this guy, this is the first guy that gets a little challenging, and the trick with this guy again is we're going to try to. It's usually the position that's slightly above the character that I go for, but it does also work somewhat if you're slightly below the character, as you see here. But it seems to work better for me if I'm slightly above the character. That's just what I seem to have. See, because he hit me there, but if I was slightly above him and did the stun lock, it seems like it would be more effective. But it's good enough for this guy. Like, I wasn't too worried about it because, like, I know I can bullshit my way through this character, you know, not a big problem at this point. So I wasn't, you know, concerned about trying to execute it flawlessly. I'm more concerned about the next guy and actually the next 3 opponents. There's only 3 more opponents left, I believe. This guy's a big pain in the ass. He'll headbutt through your combos, and he's super fast and aggressive. He's the first opponent to get super fast and aggressive. One of the hardest enemies in the game. So you see he's already going nuts. But what I'm doing, I'm trying to work my positioning up here. So what I want to do is I want to get slightly above him, and I want to work him into a corner. But I think this is where I lost my first round. I think this is the guy that took me out in this run. But you see, I'm trying to get him in a stun position, but this guy is known to break out of that. You see, and he got out. Now, that could be because I didn't have him in a perfect stun lock position. Also, with turbo set to the controller, maybe it keeps the rhythm of the kicks more consistent. I'm not sure. I didn't try mashing. So I couldn't tell you if just mashing the button will have the same result. It may. Because the kicks will only come out so fast. There's a limit on how fast you can do them, even with turbo. So it may not make much of a difference. But I use turbo, you know, on pretty much anything where it's effective. So here I'm trying to work him into the corner again. You can see he's doing a lot of damage to me. Still very dangerous. But what I really want, I want to get him in that top position, but he's not really cooperating. It was very close. I barely got him on this round. He almost beat me. You know, if he wins 2 rounds, he wins the match. Whoever wins 2 rounds first wins, you know. Now, if you play the game normally, you can continue between fights, you know, like a regular fighting game. You'll be able to replay the fights as many times as you want. So here I'm going to try to get him in position. You know, I'm guessing that I pulled it off. So here I'm using the bottom position this time, which seems to be working pretty well for this guy right now. So that is a way to do it. It can either be slightly below the guy or slightly above him. And you got to kind of get just within that kick range. There's a perfect range to it to get. And you got to kind of be bouncing him off the back wall so that he gets back up into your kick. It's a strange little setup. But you want to get it so that you're hitting his back against the wall when you knock him over. And he'll keep getting up into your kick if you do it right. Normally, though, I like to do it, like I like to get slightly above the enemy, especially the next 2 opponents. I found that worked better, being slightly above them. Because the next opponent will demolish you a lot of times if you're like slightly below him. He can still demolish you because he has, not only does he have a whip that has super long range, but he has super powerful attacks, and he'll also combo his attack with a throw. And if he gets you with all that shit, he can pretty much kill you instantly. You know, you'll die very fast. So he's one of the most dangerous opponents. But I think I get this guy stun locked pretty quick on both attempts, if I remember right. But for this guy, you want to move straight up immediately and work towards that corner. You don't want to give him a chance to really attack you. So hold up and get up there immediately. And I'm trying to inch him now into this position. I think I demonstrated better on this guy, the stun lock, but I don't know about this particular round. I think I got one good round where I got him completely stun locked, which is what I'm trying to do here, but you know the enemies don't like to cooperate with that. So I think I got a little stun lock going here. This is the idea. The kick is not that powerful, like I said. You're not doing a lot of damage. You do like 3 damage each time, I think, but eventually you'll get their health down. The key is to just, you know, utilize the ability for it to stun lock the opponent so they can't get out of it. And then it doesn't really matter how much damage you do. It's more beneficial to get the guy stuck, you know. So you see he's got that chain whip that has a super long range, and his attacks are very powerful. He's very fast and aggressive and very difficult. He's the guy, I think he was the opponent that took me the longest to beat in my first playthrough of the game. I got through the other opponents, I think, pretty easily, but this guy was a big problem. But then I got a double flawless on my playthrough of the Nintendo Switch version on Arcade Archives. I got a double flawless on this guy, you know, both rounds no damage. So this was the technique I found. So I was like, shit, this works pretty good. So if I can beat this guy this easily, maybe this will work on the other enemies, and maybe I can, do a 1cc run of the game, since I never did that for this game. And it wasn't too bad. It only took me about an extra hour and 20 minutes to get, so it wasn't really too bad. One of the easiest 1cc arcade runs, because, arcade runs are usually, arcade games tend to be a lot harder than a lot of console games, so this is one of the easier 1cc completions I did for arcade. So now is the final opponent, and I think it's based on whoever you're playing as. So for whatever reason, you have to fight yourself at the end, which I don't really, I'm not sure what that's all about. Same strategy here, but your attacks do much more damage this time for whatever reason. So this guy goes down way faster. So it's much easier than the previous fight. It's very easy. You may take some hits here and there, but you do a lot more damage for whatever reason. So this guy goes down fast, and you just try to do the same strategy on all the opponents, pretty much, of working up in that corner and trying to get them in that stun lock where they're just locked in. I didn't even get it there. I didn't get him locked into a stun lock, but it was close enough. You'll get a lot of damage just trying to get these guys in position to the stun lock, but it's important that you get that stun lock on the harder enemies, because if you start exchanging attacks with them normally, it's very hard and you can get killed very fast. But I never had much trouble with this guy at all. Even in I didn't really even practice. I think I maybe practiced the fight one time or something because it was so easy. Yeah, and that's it. I mean, so with that strat and using this character, you should be able to 1cc this game pretty easily. So there's a little ending, some credit roll. So that's about it. It's a very short game. Really not too much to it. It's not really a good game, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's, somewhat decent. I think it's kind of, slightly enjoyable, but it's a pretty shallow game. It's easy to exploit. I've seen other runs after I completed my run where players are just punching the enemies with like these little punches, and it works well enough to some degree. You just have to find the right moves to, exploit the game. In this case, it's really only one move that you need to exploit this game, and one character. So, I mean, I didn't even have to learn the other moves. I mean, there's definitely other moves and shit, and some of them are probably better, but I wasn't trying to do a speed run. I was just trying to, get a 1cc run this time, so, I didn't really give a shit. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.